Alright, so for my project, I changed what I was going to do, and I've started following this guy's tutorial where he takes a bunch of hexagons and makes them look dope. He starts out with just a standard line that has a bunch of points on it, and then he does a bunch of math to change where those points are until he has a grid. And once he has a grid, you can place hexagons on that grid. We'll wait just a second. There it is. And then obviously you've got to change the way those hexagons look, rotate them, all that fun stuff. And then you get a lot more hexagons. All of this part is math that he uses to make a hexagon mask around it. So all those hexagons are still there. Thanks, Skillshare. They're all still there, but you basically make a mask around them. So the whole thing is a hexagon. Now, those two objects you see him messing with now are controllers that if you move them, it will move the way that the noise texture ups and downs the geometry. So it's basically controlling the whole thing. You can see he's got water, so the hexagons there like despawn once they get to a certain height so that water can spawn there. And this is sort of how his ends up. It's pretty cool. He talks about like his water shader that he got from somewhere, and yeah, it's just a pretty cool project. Now mine is a lot like his. Like I said, I followed his tutorial, but I multiplied the heights by each other, basically squaring them. So you can see the sand is way lower than the mountains are in terms of like at each step up. So like sand to sand is way lower than rock to rock kind of a thing. Just makes it look a lot better in my opinion. I then took the water, which you can see there, and I mapped that to its own noise texture that has nothing to do with the rest of the world. And so that moves on its own. Here are the controllers, where you can move the noise just like his. And the other controller just scales the height, or the size, sorry, so the size of each hexagon. Now, I did mess it up with the water. You can kind of see it happening there, so I can't do that on mine properly yet. But you can still scale the mask and everything. You can, do a desert or whatever it is you want to do. All that still works properly. Now, I did set up the trees. I took the exact same node setup that the ground used, and then I just disconnected all the crap that spawned the ground, and I took the stuff that you can see there. I did a random. So if I get rid of that random, it spawns on every single point of the grass. And so if I change that random back, it just puts a random displacement. Now that less than and greater than, that is so that it only spawns on the grass. You can see me messing with it here. And I didn't love that, so I just put it back. And yeah, I believe so the water I tied to another empty, and that empty I just animate moving across the scene, so the water moves across the scene. You can see it moving when I move the object there. And so just by moving it in one direction, it makes the water just move in one standard direction, which is pretty cool. And then now to the actual rendering portions. I set up I believe I talked about the sky. Yeah, so I set up the sun texture, which is pretty cool. You can change where the sun is in the sky. You can change its intensity, which doesn't really show up here great in the video because it doesn't do a proper, like an entire render. But you can change its elevation in the sky, what direction the sun is, so like its rotation and all that, which is really cool that Blender just has that built in. Like that's not an add-on or anything. You can change the altitude, which I don't believe did a ton in this setting. It does do a lot based on what all you can see. How much air, how much dust, and how much ozone is going on. Just changes the whole atmosphere. And so, I went through and adjusted all those till they looked good. So, yeah, to get those highlights, I actually took a spotlight and gave that its own noise texture as well, just like the rest of the world is built on. And I mapped that properly, did all that. And so it's white and black, which just turns it on or off in certain places based on that noise texture. So you can actually see if I scale that noise way up, the points get way smaller, but there are more of them. And then when I scale it down, bigger points, but there are less of them. And I did animate that between 0 and 0.2 because I didn't want it to move a ton, just based on like, when the sunbeams move, they don't move very fast. They just sort of, move a little bit. And then I added a volumetric object to just surround the whole scene. It was just a cube that I gave this principled volume shader, and I made it slightly blue, gave it a density of 0.002, and that is my whole project. Thank you for watching, guys.